Thank you for your question. As a short response to your question, I have to say that the Europe is deserved to encounter to this ever-increasing problem. And this is just the beginning. It is not something very special that they weren't able to predict the side effect of their wrong policies. This is obvious that if you try to make your neighboring countries poor, or if you try to dominate on their government, the situation in those countries will get worse. So clearly, the people of that worse country will scramble to the better suited country. I cannot really understand that, why the European countries haven't learned from the history and from the incidents during and after their colonization in the Asia, Africa and Latin America. Many Indian and Pakistani people living in the UK just because of colonization of Britain in India. Why the flow of Eastern European people rush to the UK? Only because of wrong policy of Britain toward the Eastern European countries. It is also true about France. After the independence of Algeria, thousands of Algerians rushed to the different cities in France, as nowadays they formed a huge population in France, which most of them are Muslims. So they should not look for any guilty, they should blame themselves. So the same route is true for the new flow of Iraqi, Syrian and Afghan asylum seekers to the Europe. Because the NATO forces invaded to their countries barbarically and savagely, they made their countries insecure to live. So obviously they would find a safer place to live so they can protect their families. What are the members of the fake international coalitions against ISIS? What countries are supporting the ISIS forces? If there are some uneducated, I'm talking about ISIS, if there are some uneducated people with dogmatic religious beliefs, so how they could affect largely on the international relations? Do you see how they use internet very well? How they wage a media war in a beautiful way? Definitely they've been supported by those states that now encounter with many different problems. And this is just the beginning. Surely this amount of immigrants will cause some very bad effects on the European countries, and very soon their native people will feel them. Asylum seekers are the people who lost everything and they do not have anything else to lose. So they are ready to do everything. They hate the Western countries because truly they blame them for each and every single disaster that they saw in their homeland. Beside this hatred that asylum seekers have, European governments forced to another security problem, and that is the terrorists who's been training by European governments, USA and Israel, or some of Arab states like Saudi Arabia and Qatar or Jordan as their proxies. For example, about 600 people joined to the ISIS from Britain. When they come back home, they are potentially terrorists and may they kill British citizens. European governments should blame themselves for those probable terrorist attacks because they themselves formed and nurtured and trained the terrorists. They wanted to kill Muslims by the terrorist groups, but they must be sure, and the European people be sure, that very soon you are going to taste the bitter flavor of insecurity in Europe. May you ask me how I reached to this conclusion? I should say this is the main principle of the universe. History repeats itself. Having a glance over the history, you will find many same cases that finally oppressors got punished by the hand of destiny. I do not blame European ordinary people directly. Rather, this repetitive mistakes done by Western politicians who serve accursed Satan, in fact, but the EU citizens should perform demonstrations against their governments and force them to change their minds and leave the poor people alone in the Middle East. So I address EU and American citizens in this recording and ask them to do something for themselves, because their politicians are taking them to a catastrophic situation. Unfortunately, they cannot understand the danger. So, as final word, I strongly recommend you, if you really want to save your continent, I mean the Europe, you should go out of Middle East and try to build the Middle East like it was before the invasion. Very simple. This is a very simple. You should go out of the Middle East and rebuild it again. But I'm sure that you won't do that, because your human souls are replaced by satanic ones, and just you will be happy by seeing the blood of unprotected women and children on the ground. Thank you for listening.